Hey folks, this week Rob joins me and we talk with Cody Zuschlag about the Zen project. That's the hypervisor that probably runs on something that you use from day to day. It's not the Linux kernel, it's not KVM, it is its own thing and it does power a large portion of the cloud. You don't want to miss it, so stay tuned. This is FLOSS Weekly, episode 853, recorded Tuesday, October the 28th. Hardware addiction, don't send help. Hey folks, it is time for FLOSS Weekly. That's the show about free, Libre, and open source software. I'm your host, Jonathan Bennett, and today we have a throwback episode. We're going to revisit someone, well, a project at least, that we had a long time ago, like 6 years ago, back when it was Randall running the show and Aaron Newcomb was the co-host, and I pinged both of those guys yesterday, in fact, and said, hey, you ought to come back, and they both said, you waited until the day before, we have stuff going on, we can't do it. So I went, Rob, can you help? And Rob's here. He's going to be co-host. Thank you, man.
I'm here to save the day.
Here to save the day. Yeah. So we're talking Zen, the Zen hypervisor, and we sort of talk a lot about hypervisor stuff, and Zen in particular. Some of it being over at that other podcast we do, the Untitled Linux Show, but also because of our day jobs, we end up doing some hypervisor and virtualization adjacent stuff.
Yeah, I love VMs and containers too. Sorry about sorry Zen.
Surely,
Cody, but
surely a container is just as good as a hypervisor and a virtualized machine, right? Surely it's just as good.
Something like that. All the things technology-wise in that realm, though, they're all fun to play with.
Yes.
And they help with productivity in many ways.
Yes. We have a guest today that I believe has an opinion on this. Cody Zuschlag, I believe is how his last name. Oh, we offended him. We offended him and he left. He's gone. Well, hopefully he'll be back here in just a second.
He looked like he was laughing at our comments.
He looked like he was laughing and then he was gone.
Laughed too hard and bumped the connection.
That may be what it was. Yeah, it's interesting. We were talking before the show about like KVM, the kernel virtual machine. And the real interesting question we asked, is that a type 1 or a type 2 hypervisor? And I had to go look, and Rob's like, I know what the difference is between a type 1 and a type 2 hypervisor.
Yeah, I would say I think my description was maybe a little more accurate, but perhaps my opinion on KVM was, well, it sounds like the actual answer is a little more nuanced than I thought.
Yeah, I did a little bit of reading on this, and the technical answer is, from what I can tell, a Type 1 hypervisor has the hardware ability to trap individual, like root level commands, whereas a Type 2 hypervisor, I think I have this the right way around. A Type 2 hypervisor, you have to do all that in software, right? So Type 1, you can trap privileged commands with hardware, and Type 2, you have to do it in software. So that kind of means that KVM is technically a Type 1, but sort of skates on the edge between the two.
Yeah, and the way I've always, the simplistic way I've always stated is the Type 1 is close to bare metal, where Type 2 is further away, more software related, so.
Yeah. I guess we will have to put a break in here. I was hoping he would jump right back in and we could roll into it. Oh, and of course, the moment I say, the moment I give up, there he comes back. Welcome.
Crazy. Yeah, I missed the intro, but I assume it was awesome.
It was.
Epic intro.
It was amazing.
I don't know what happened. I had a little glitch there, and then the screen was still on, but everybody disappeared. But I'm here now. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. Now, Cody, I took a stab at your last name, and I suspect that I got it very wrong. How do you pronounce that?
I would pronounce it Zuschlag.
Oh, okay. I didn't do too bad then.
And it's German or Austrian origin. So the only place I've ever been where people can pronounce it is in Germany. So
now you're not calling to us from the U.S. You are over in Europe somewhere, right?
Yeah, I've been located in France, in the Alps of France for 14 years now.
That's awesome.
It's been a while. Yeah, I'm not complaining.
Yeah, Rob and I are both in the U.S. in the Central Time Zone, so a quarter of the way around the world, but that's fun.
Yeah, sun's down here. It looks like, well, judging by Rob's background on his exotic apartment,
his very fake background. He's actually in his basement. Don't let him fool you. He's in his basement.
I know.
It looks like this day or night.
Yeah. So Cody, you are part of the Zen project. You're the community manager there? Do you dive into the code side of things? Where do you sort of fit into Zen?
That is a great question. I'm still trying to figure that one out myself too. But as the community manager, I have done so far. I've been the community manager for about 6 or 7 months now. I have done 0 code. So I'll just be really honest about that. I come from a developer background, so I'd be happy to do some code, but there's a lot to do. So one of these days, I keep telling the maintainers, like, find me an easy issue and I'll do it. And they found me an easy issue. I just haven't done it. So
yeah,
we'll get there.
Some of the projects that I work with, we have a tag like on GitHub. It's like good first issue.
Yep. They sent me like a list of them. Yeah, exactly. So one of these days, maybe for my year anniversary, I'll tackle one of this.
It sort of seems to me. So Zen is a hypervisor. It lets you run virtual machines. And from sort of the outside looking in, I would think that's kind of a complicated thing to do. There probably is quite a bit of a learning curve to jumping into the project and being able to contribute code. Is that what you found?
I think that's a fair assessment. And I come from a kind of a firmware background from many years ago in a previous life, like 10 or 15 years ago. I did robotics and firmware. In the last 10 years, I've done kind of webby stuff, web apps. So for me, it's been a challenge, but it's also they model it's a mature project. So, changes happen through patches on email lists, and it's kind of done the same way, modeled after the Linux kernel and how things are done with Linux. So me doing 10 years of web development, like where's my GitHub, code review and all that. And that's not the way things work. So I think your question was like how to get, is it hard to get involved? And I don't think it's hard, but yeah, you need that kind of low level knowledge and kind of understand the workflow, how patches work on email lists.
Yeah. Now, are you sort of in a position to talk about the whole type 1 versus type 2 virtual machine? This is what Rob and I were riffing on while you were gone. And it's like, surely KVM is a type 2 virtual machine. Oh, wait, gotcha. No, it's sort of in between and technically a type 1.
Yeah, it's kind of a controversial subject, right? Like they are technically a type 1 because it runs inside the kernel, the Linux kernel. So it's not running on top. It's not in user space, right? KVM. But what we like to say, or I like to say, I'll change that a little bit, is being a true type 1 hypervisor is what Zen is. And I feel like KVM is kind of that hybrid because, it's loaded as kernel modules and runs in the kernel space. So it's technically type 1, but it's still running with the rest of the Linux kernel. So that's where I see kind of the difference between type 1 and type 2. Type 2 being, what we traditionally say is like a virtual box or parallels or whatever you're running inside your operating system. And so KVM is a bit more low level in that. So it strikes a different space than Zen. But I could go deeper on that if people want to know. The advantage to, as I see it, for Zen is that it's built from the ground up to be a hypervisor. So if you're going to run KVM, you have all the rest of the Linux kernel that you need to manage updates, and there's all this other stuff happening in the Linux kernel. Overhead is the word that I would use, but I don't want to sound too negative about that, but overhead. I'm trying to be diplomatic about it.
Sure.
Whereas if you're running Zen, like it's built for purpose to be a hypervisor. So you're getting a much thinner and, in theory, efficient and secure layer to run your virtual machines.
Yeah.
So when you run KVM, you're running all of Linux with KVM in there. Or what you described when you run Zen, that's standalone. You don't have to run Linux and then Zen on with that. It's its own thing.
Yep, I think that's a good way to summarize that. Exactly. Yeah.
How many of the bells and whistles does Zen bring along? Because like there's a few things that you have to have, right? You have to have some way to have a file system. And
Yep.
one of the neat things you can do with Linux is in KVM is you can have the Linux OS give you a RAID underneath, all the networking stuff. I've had a lot of fun with Linux on bare metal and then running KVM, doing networking things like VLANs and bridges and the fun ways that you can combine those. How sophisticated is Zen when it comes to the rest of the OS type stuff that you might need to do?
That's a good question. You're probably gonna get a little bit beyond my expertise, but it's definitely modular, and there's a whole lot of work happening around the different modules for managing storage and network interfaces. I couldn't go into the technical details on how that compares to KVM, but there's all those possibilities are there, right? Like you need to have all that ability to run different types of storage, different types of network interfaces, and things that we're working on now is like sharing the GPU between virtual machines and stuff like that. So, but it's all happening in a modular way, right? That you enable the pieces that you need for your instance, your application.
Is Zen considered like a microkernel?
That's a good question. Let me get back to you on that one. I don't know if I would consider it a microkernel or not. There's a sub project that's called Unicraft that's for building microkernels, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if Zen would we consider that a microkernel or not. Yeah, good question.
I'm bringing the hard ones. I know.
Yeah, let's get started with the hard questions.
That's fine. And then I'm also curious. Was Zen sort of? You mentioned built for purpose. So is it not like derived from the BSD kernel or the Linux kernel? It was always intended to be a hypervisor.
Ooh, wow. I don't know the history because Zen. The first commit to Zen was in 2002. So I was still in university when that happened. So I don't know that far back of the history, like what they used to start, the initial project, other than it was a research project coming out of Cambridge, which I think we all know. If anyone's watched the previous episodes from 2019 and then back, I think in 2009, there was another episode. That's the history, but yeah, was it derived from someplace? Again, another question of the history that I don't have enough context to answer those questions. Yeah.
Let me
go ahead, Rob.
Let me ask a softer, easier question then. Let's get something you can answer.
Take me off the spot, right?
So, for somebody, I've known about Zen. I've honestly never used it. Interested? I'm gonna have to try it sometime. Yeah. But for somebody who wants to use it, maybe they're familiar with all these other VM options out there. Is there a GUI? How do you use it? Is it all command line? Are there things you plug into it to make it GUIized? How is that the use of it?
All right. Thank you for an easy question like that. That's one that I needed, and that one I can answer. So there is the machine that's running the Zen hypervisor. There is a terminal interface that you can access, and there is like it looks like ncurses. I don't know if it's ncurses or not, but there is like a text-based graphical interface that would let you do some basic maintenance and control over your system. But what typically happens is you're going to install a virtual machine that manages the configuration aspects, and it's going to bring you like a really modern UI. So thinking about a web application that you can connect, kind of what people would be used to if they've used VMware before, and those types of tools that gives you a really graphic interface, and you can see icons and loads and gauges of how much resources are being used with which machines, fire up new virtual machines. So that all happens through an interface is the word that I like to use, called DOM0. So that's the control domain that's going to control what happens on the hypervisor. So the typical use case in a data center or a server is you're going to install a virtual machine that gives you that control that you want. But you can still connect to the server through SSH or whatever your tool choices, or connect to monitor and you actually go into the command line, and there is a terminal that you can access.
Mm-hmm. So your background is in sort of embedded development, right? Firmware and stuff.
Originally, if I go back way back in time,
many years ago, I know how that goes.
Many years ago, I got the gray hairs to prove it. I have degrees in computer systems and engineering and software engineering. So at the time, we called that the embedded devices, which now we would call it Internet of Things.
Yeah. IoT embedded, it's all sort of the same thing.
My connection's getting crazy again.
That's fine.
I was acting up, but I'm back.
You're back.
So good.
Yeah.
To your question about my background. So yeah, and I did a firmware. I did USB firmware for a while. Writing a USB firmware on an 8051. So Intel 8051. So that puts some dates on my first job out of college, which was a fun project, because the only time in my career where people told me, like, could you make less function calls, because there's like limited stack space, and so they're like, could you refactor your code, like make less function calls? I was like, oh, okay, no one's ever asked me that before. And then after that, I did some robotics work with liquid handling robotics, which was interesting. Quite an interesting job.
Yeah, that
was in C++, so a step forward, being a little bit more modern than the assembly in the C that we wrote for the 8051. And it's right around that time that I had an opportunity to relocate to France, and I really went enterprise software and back-end software at that time. So I've done a little bit of everything, which is a weird story for somebody's career. So coming to this end project has been kind of going back to my origin, right? Like, I come from that low-level code is my roots, right? And I'm going back to my roots as I see this. So it's helpful, again, as the cat's out of the bag. Like, I'm not making commits or code changes yet. But at least I have the base, right, to understand what people are talking about. We're going to talk about registers,
right,
IO devices. Like, I could follow along, right? Like, I've done those things, even if I'm not doing it on a daily basis today.
Yeah, your job description there at Zen is technically like community manager.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I have this theory. This may be a little controversial, but my theory goes that it's better to have community managers that actually have the technical background than not. I think it's really a good call.
I think so too. Even if I'm not, active in the day-to-day code changes, I go to the maintainers' calls and I'm there, and I can follow along, right? I know what they're talking about. If somebody calls me and says, we got this issue, can you talk to these other people and get them on board or help upstream things? Like, I got the background, right? It's not gibberish to me.
Yeah, absolutely. You also kind of know how people that write code tick. And I think that's something that's lacking in a lot of community maintainers, is there's just not necessarily a good understanding of how we're a little different than normal people.
I think that's a fair assessment. And yeah, like, knowing how people tick is definitely a good way to say that. And it's so true, right? Like, I don't have like a background in event management, like managing conferences and stuff, which is something I do now, right? So I'm having to learn that, but I just apply my engineering skills to that, right? Like, show me how to solve problems and I'll solve them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so
spend a lot of time on telephone.
The embed, we're on Skype or Teams in meetings. Yeah, that's my new job description. The embedded background is real fascinating to me, because I went to a conference about a decade ago, and it was actually a conference by the OpenWRT guys, but there was one of the presenters there had this amazing new idea. We all thought they were a little crazy, and it was, on your embedded hardware, the future is virtualization. You're not going to run anything on the bare metal anymore. You're going to virtualize it, and that's going to solve all of our security problems. And everybody there was like, these guys are kind of nuts. That idea is still around, though. It's kind of new again, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the cycles, man, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Tech works in cycles. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad you brought it up because it is huge. And I can give you a couple reasons why it is actually a good idea. And I will probably deep dive into this soon. I'd be happy to do so. But Zen is just exploding in the automotive industry right now. And there's a few reasons to that. If you're going to run multiple services, processes, I don't know how we want to split that up on the same machine, you want the maximum amount of security and isolation. So if one process fails, it's not going to bring down the system or have any potential of bringing down the system, right? If it's going to use 100% of the CPU, well, if you're only given 20% of the CPU to begin with, we don't care, right? Keep your 100%. That's fine for us. So that's at like the first level, like the first thing that you think about. But there's also like a really economic driver in that too. If you take a modern car, right, there's so many microcontrollers and microprocessors and FPGAs and just tons of digital logic communicating through some sort of bus. There's different types of communication buses to communicate. So I think for automotive manufacturers, there's an economic incentive there. Was like, why don't we just put that all on one system on a chip? Like, why don't we just put that all on one computer? Accessible somewhere in the car. Like we can cut down on the cabling, we can cut down on all the overhead to have these devices communicating with each other, and we run them in virtual machines. So we can have safety critical applications running and really limit any kind of risk that if your infotainment center you hack into your Android infotainment center and you try to watch a YouTube video while driving, which you should never do.
Of course not.
It's not gonna bring down your gauges or whatever, right? That's just a pretty common use case for Zen, is that the gauges would run on a virtual machine using automotive grade Linux. So there's a really economic factor to that, right? Everything's about let's consolidate, and having a high core count CPU is more cost effective than embedding multiple systems inside an embedded device.
Yeah, you talk about the automotive use case. I can't but help but think of the Charlie Miller and Chris Valasek hack from about a decade ago, where
which was what? Yeah, fill me in.
They connected to the infotainment center because a 2014 Jeep Grand Cherokee had a SIM card in it, of course, and it had I think it was an IPv6 address on the public internet. And you could just log into the infotainment center. And what they realized is the infotainment center had a read-only chip connected to the CAN bus, but it was the same hardware as the read-write chip. And they were able to reflash the firmware on that CAN bus interface and then write out to the CAN bus. And then, once you're at that point, all bets are off, and, they could disable the transmission and turn off the brakes. And
wow,
they pretty much concluded that, yes, they could assassinate someone by doing this. And that was a big deal when that research came out. I can't but help but think of that when we talk about this and the reason why you might want a hypervisor around your infotainment center.
Right, it's managing what I/O devices are available to which VMs. Right, so the operating system running that VM thinks it has direct access to the hardware, but there's this layer in between saying this is the only hardware that you see. But there's hardware that needs to be shared too, which is a technical challenge. I don't have all the details, but that's the challenge that's being worked through now, is like, how do you share those I/O devices between multiple virtual machines? Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so we joked about this in the intro. Why not just use containers? Surely Dockerize everything. Let's just put it all in one OS. Only run one kernel. Dockerize everything. We're good to go. That gets us there, right?
It's 2025, right?
It's 2025. We should be able to Dockerize everything.
Why are we talking about virtual machines, right? This is crazy talk. It's actually pretty simple, right? If we look at Docker, the architecture, processes are running in namespaces, but basically you're isolating at the process level. And I'm probably dumbing that down simplifying that quite a bit, but isolation is happening at the process level. Whereas in a virtual machine, the isolation is happening really at the hardware level, right? You're allocating hardware resources per virtual machine. So you're getting this extra layer of isolation between running systems, running processes. I think that's probably the biggest difference. And I would follow up on that and saying there's projects where people are actually doing both. So they're wrapping containers in VMs to get that extra isolation, that extra security, high isolation, but managing it through Kubernetes or whatever container orchestrator you want to use. Edera, EDERA is a really interesting project that's using Zen and wrap. I'm simplifying again, but wrapping containers with VMs. So you can actually have both.
Yeah.
So VMs is going to give you that low level. I want to say hardware layer, but it's really the hypervisor that's assigning resources where they need to go. But to getting that isolation at a much lower layer than you could ever get with Docker or containers.
Yeah. Rob, you want to pick it up? And there's a thing that Rob has had to deal with in his day job, and I just saw that this question is highlighted. Why don't you talk a little bit about VMware, Rob? Make sure you're unmuted. And this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I know one of the things then hopefully could replace for many of us is VMware, because in my day job, I do deal with VMware. And as everybody knows, when Broadcom bought them out, it caused a lot of headaches for many of us and continues to. So, what's the impact been with Broadcom and VMware on the Zen project?
It's been an opportunity for Zen.
Oh, yeah.
I'll put that really simple, right?
Absolutely.
This has been a huge opportunity for Zen because Zen is a true open source project, right? And we're part of the Linux Foundation. We were an early project to go to Linux Foundation. So we're protected we have governance, we have an advisory board, we have the entire legal team of the Linux Foundation, protecting the project. So it's free, and it's always going to be free, right? Now, let me back up for anyone who asks any questions. Obviously, there are companies that provide commercial support and add commercial features on top of Zen. So that exists. And if I was going to advise somebody who's deploying data center scale virtualization, I would say look at one of the providers that's either doing commercial support based on Zen. So all their code is still open source, but they're providing commercial support. Or look at providers that add some commercial pieces to ease that factor. But there's projects out there that can literally migrate. You can take a VM from VMware and just migrate it to Zen, and within minutes or whatever, right? You can just deploy that VM. It never knew that it got changed. And that goes back to your first question, Rob, with the interface to manage the VMs. Those projects, and I can drop a couple names like XCP-NG. So this is XCP Next Generation. So XCP-NG is a sub-project of the Zen project. And this is a fully open source hypervisor, ready for servers and data centers. You can install that on that box sitting in your closet when we're done with the call, right? When we're done with this podcast, you can flash a USB drive, install that, and within minutes, depending on how many times you've done it, how much docs you have to read, but within minutes, you can have something really comparable to VMware installed. So, Rob, if you want to try that tonight, I'd go for it.
I'll have to test it out. But so for somebody running, a major data center, perhaps with VMware in it, does Zen support all or the majority of the things, clustering, resource allocation, fiber channel storage? I don't know what else it could miss.
I don't even know what fiber channel storage is. I like being honest, right? I'm not going to hide anything here from you, but the short answer is yes. These projects are competitive with VMware. So feature by feature, I think a blanket statement is yes. They are very comparable and they have really similar feature sets. But But yeah, if you talk about fiber-based storage, I don't know what that is, and I don't know if if they support that. But the short answer is yes, and I'm sure we can find exceptions, of course, right? If we're going to compare software, but it is data center ready. It's ready to be deployed on a large data center, and it's happening now, right? I think we talked about this in 2019, that the original version of Amazon EC2 was built off of Zen. So that gives you an idea of scale. I'm changing the subject slightly from deploying on my private data center to cloud providers, but it works at that scale, right? So if Amazon is able to do it, then I'm sure others can do it. I can speak about that in the past tense because Amazon has since, sorry, I don't mean to change the subject, but they have since written their own in-house hypervisors, is what I understand. So you can still deploy Zen-based VMs with EC2, but I think when you choose which machine you're deploying on, like some of the newer machines are using their in-house
interesting.
Their in-house hypervisor. Yeah. Which we can go into details on that, but I'll let you ask your question first.
Yeah, I just want to rewind back a little bit to the first question again about the GUI options. So if I understand that correctly, there are multiple like third-party options that I could pick from and say I like this interface and I want to use this to work with Zen. Is that correct?
I think that's a good summary of that. So I mentioned that the XCP-NG project, and there's a interface with them called Zen Orchestra, which is also open source, and that is really comparable. Could you mix and match different projects? That's a bigger question. So XCP-NG is basically a turnkey Linux distro. Well, it's not Linux; it's using Zen, right? But we're all kind of in the same ecosystem. So a turnkey distro with Zen pre-configured. So it has the nice installer, console-based installer, gets it installed, gets it running, lets you install your interface of choice, which the default is Zen Orchestra. So it gets you up and running really fast. But I don't know if you can mix and match. I think that was kind of your question, right? To compare different.
No, not really mix and match. Just that I could choose if I wanted to use the whatever worked for me best or I like the best.
Yeah, I think I'll go back to the XCP-NG project because that is our sub project. There is two interfaces now. Like I think if you just install XCP-NG, like there's a web app built in right away that you can use, and then you can choose to install Zen Orchestra, which is giving you more features and possibly more of a look and feel that resembles a bit more of a VMware.
Now, I don't know if Rob's going to really admit to it on this show, but what he really wants to do is install Windows inside of Zen. Is that possible?
That's totally, yeah. That happens all the time. Happens all the time. You want to get those client-side drivers so Windows knows it's running on a VM, right? Mm-hmm. And then you can report some of the network usage. Certain stats come from the client-side drivers. And there's a few different ways to get those drivers today. It depends on what solution you use, where I'd go. I'm talking in vague terms because getting drivers signed by Microsoft by open source project is getting harder and harder. So there's a lot of discussion in the community right now because we've traditionally maintained Windows drivers, but we might let some of the partners take that over because it is a challenge moving forward. It's not really Microsoft's model, right? Like you're a bunch of open source developers. Why don't you go and sign drivers with us? Yeah, big surprise, right?
Well, they love Linux.
Yeah,
but this isn't Linux.
Yeah, right. So I guess that does bring up another question. Sometimes, with some of these other options, the most efficient way is to just directly pass through the hardware. Directly pass through a video card or whatever. Is that things like that an option or?
Wow, I haven't gone that deep. Like I haven't managed. I only had like my little home lab, right, where I was just like playing with things, and I didn't try to pass through the graphics card to see if I get 3D acceleration, etc. But people are doing that. Like I know that that's happening. Like you can get 2D and 3D access to the GPU. I don't know if they're opening up direct access to the hardware. Like VirtIO is a pretty modern technology, so virtual IO. So I think there's like this really thin layer that's giving you what appears to be direct access, even if it's going through the hypervisor with that and
Do,
avoiding the driver's issues.
do those VirtIO drivers work with Zen then? Or
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
This is something actively being worked on because I think it's going to be pretty important for the automotive use case, keeping things as efficient as possible. And like I said, that sharing the GPU. So I don't know. My car's not new enough, but some newer cars, like you're going to see your integrated CarPlay and like the gauges on the same display, right? So if you think about that technically, that's technically pretty interesting, right? Like how do you do like picture in picture inside a car or something, right?
yeah.
Some really interesting technical challenges that are being worked on right now.
Yeah, interesting stuff. I'm actually really glad to hear that there is some code sharing. When you mentioned libvirt, because that is something that I use a lot doing KVM virtualization. So that's pretty neat that there is some of that. Are you aware? Do you know, like, is there some other places where there's code that gets reused and shared between the various projects?
Yeah, I don't know. I should have called like a maintainer to be here with me. All right, this should have been. I didn't know we were going to go deep into the code, but next time.
In
6 years when I'm back, when I'm back in 6 years, I will bring a maintainer with me, and we'll have all the answers to those questions. It's a great question. I know that we push code upstream. A challenge for Zen is you can install it in Linux, obviously. Keeping those packages up to date is a challenge, and then having having Zen be tested when every distro updates their kernel. This is something we're actively working on. So we just have like a ton of really fun and exciting challenges that we're getting over. But think about that, right? Like, how do you, if you're going to install Zen? I mean, I guess any package has that problem, but Zen has such a close relationship to the hardware that it presents some kind of unique challenges. I would love to talk about the CI system too at some point. We'll get to that later. Our testing system.
This actually might be a really good time to go into that, because that's got to be massive. Because there's more. We're talking about more than just x86 64 now that Zen runs on, right?
Oh yeah,
that's got to be quite the CI system.
We're on ARM.
RISC-V.
We have very early support for RISC-V. So
cool.
It's in, but it's not something stable that you'd want to run in production today. So, but we're gonna have, I want to say it's the 9th of November, coming in mid-November, we're gonna have our 4.21 release, and it includes even more RISC-V support. So the support is in there and it's happening. So it's gonna be stable soonish. I couldn't give you an exact date, but that's coming. So yeah, the CI is having. This is actually so cool. So the first thing we do is we're going to use Qemu to emulate some of these things. So some of the more exotic architectures, we can run some kind of smoke tests and run tests on a ton of different architectures just by emulating it. That's the first part of the tests in the CI. The second part is something that I'm personally really proud of, but really thankful of the geniuses that work on this stuff, is that partners can deploy a board, like set it on their desk, and through a little bit of configuration, connect that into our CI system. And this is huge in people making custom boards, right? Systems on a chips, custom silicone. Like traditionally, they'd have to mail these things off to a test lab somewhere, mail off the new hardware, make sure the latest version of the hardware, and run these tests, get reports. Like it was a long process, but with our CI system that's running in GitLab, through a little bit of configuration, it's actually not that hard. Folks can set a board on their desk and run tests on it. Like every time there's a commit, every time there's a change in Zen, like it can run on that hardware sitting on your desk. And this is huge, not only in thinking about exotic architectures, but in that embedded space, right? In that embedded space where everything's a custom architecture, right? Like everything's unique. And this just cuts down the time huge. Like the engineering resources and the time to market just gets cut down, this huge amount. Like as a developer, I can just sit and have that board running on my desk,
Right.
and have it run with every change in Zen, which is something that we're really proud of.
Yeah.
If you check out our website, somewhere in there's like the CI status page, you can see like a live like 3D map of the globe where tests are running right now. We have like 3 or 4 test centers right now, and literally like some of these boards are just boards sitting on a maintainer's desk, right? Which is something really cool that we're proud of.
Yeah.
I'll share a link over with folks.
Yeah. We'll make sure and get that in the show notes too. That's really cool. One of the worst things is when you do a release and right after you push the button for the release, you get a phone call or an email or something from, one of your hardware partners that says, pull it back. You just broke stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if you'd been compiling and playing along at home while we were doing the development work, we could have, figured this out earlier.
Absolutely. Right. And this is huge for why Zen, like has always been an open source project, right? And this is part of the community aspect to it, and why Zen kind of bridges that gap between us as geeks who love open source and commercial companies that are building products, right? Building products that have profit margins, etc. Zen bridges that gap because we facilitate that work because we're open about it, right? Like there's nothing closed, there's nothing hidden. Like if you want to play, like come and play with us. Like we're ready, right?
Yeah.
We're ready to go.
What was the last? And you may not have a whole lot of insight into this. I'm just curious if like what was the last problem? The last time CI blew up?
Let me pull up my status page here, which I have open in front of me. I see there was a test that failed. One test failed yesterday. So that's not really a blow up, right? That's not a blow up. That's like one platform failed a test. On my status page, I just list the last 10 runs of the CI. And so I can go back to the 17th of October, and there's been no blow ups. So it's been a while, right? It's been a while. I think that it's pretty stable. And when things do blow up, it's usually like a configuration problem, like a machine got off the network or somebody unplugged that board sitting on somebody's desk, right? Like it's usually something like that. There's enough eyes on the project, and since we are a mature project, some of the maintainers have been there for years, right? So it's pretty rare to see like an all hands on deck red alert situation.
There may have been one a couple of weeks ago when
I'm sure
when a very large company, it was DNS, and a very large company went down, and therefore all of the rest of us went down. That probably
Everybody was
had
down.
Yeah. That was fun. All right, so
fun, yeah.
what is coming? What is up next? What are the things that you are excited about to see in the Zen project?
Coming up next in Zen, well, I already talked about automotive, but this is I'm really excited to see where this goes. So if I talk about, since we are a Linux Foundation project, like we have an advisory board, so companies can join the advisory board. They can be a member to the project, and we have Ford. We have Ford Motor Company, which is one of our members. We have Honda. AMD is one of our members. Renesas, who is a huge silicone provider based in Japan and works heavily with the automotive industry, is one of our members. So like automotive is happening, right? And I don't know today, I don't have the answer to this, but I don't think it's in anybody's car today, but I think it's really close to getting there. So I'm really excited to see where that goes and what changes that brings back to the project. And it's deeper than that too, because you suddenly need to have different types of audits and safety certifications. We can kind of go deeper in that maybe in a few minutes, but Zen's going to I'm quite certain, be safety certified, so that it can run in kind of safety critical applications. And Zen is well suited for that. I'll speak more about that in a second, but this is going to be huge for Zen. And that's just the start, right? If once you get one, go through the work of getting it safety certified, functional safety, like after that, like the sky's the limit, right? Like we could see Zen in industrial spaces, right? We could see Zen maybe one day in medical devices, right? I don't know, right? Those certifications are obviously harder everywhere you go up, but think about avionics, like in airplanes, right? I was at the Zen Summit, and I can tell you that we had people there from, one of the world's largest airplane manufacturers there. We had talks from people working for defense contractors, like building probably drones, right? If you look at the website, there's a picture of a drone. I don't know exactly what they do. It's top secret, right? But
Yeah.
Zen's there.
Do you know, does Zen have any of the FIPS certifications, the Federal Information Processing Standard?
I don't know.
Okay.
I can come back to you on that. Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have the details on that.
You don't have the whole. You mean you don't have the whole list of certifications right in front of you?
This is the we could maybe at the end of the show we'll talk more about this. But being the community manager, like I just do everything, right? Like,
Yeah.
It's this insane place. Like there's no definition of my role. Like I just do a little bit of everything. So I don't have that list yet, but I would be curious to know. And I talked about airplanes and in space. Technically, Zen was used in some stuff by NASA. I don't know if it's in space today or not. It's a gray area, but we kind of claim fame that Zen was in space, but I don't know if it still is. So
Yeah.
I don't have the details on that either. Right? This is the rumor. The rumor mill is telling that Zen has been in space. So these are the exciting things happening if we talk about the embedded space. But if we go back to the server space, the data center space, there's just tons of exciting things happening there too, right? If we look at ARM, and I already named some of our members, ARM is one of our members too. So I think that there is a revolution happening in the data center space that probably be transparent to most users of the cloud and data centers. But we talk about high density core counts, which ARM is kind of leading the road on that, and probably the other silicon manufacturers are going to follow suit, having hundreds of cores in a single microprocessor. This is going to revolutionize data centers and also on-site servers, right? Like an example that was given to me once, if you think about an old brick building in Boston or something, right? Like they don't have the space or like the electricity connections or the thermal management to deploy, hundreds of not virtual, but actual physical machines, right? So this is where that high core density microprocessing becomes really interesting, right? Like how can you get the maximum core count per watt, maximum core count per heat, and maximum core count per physical space. So there's just huge, like a revolution happening in data centers and servers right now that, like I said, will be transparent to users of that, but people who deploy that are going to know what's happening. And Zen's going to be there to power that, right? Because once you have hundreds of cores running on a single machine, like that's where you need the virtual machines the hypervisor to divvy that out to the various applications. So it's such an exciting part of Zen that the first commit was in 2002. So we're 23 years later, and a challenge that I have as a community manager is people hear that like, oh well, Zen, like this is like an old project, right? This is like some legacy stuff, and nothing could be more opposite, right? Like Zen is just exploding right now, and maybe it's the cycles, right? We talked about cycles in technology, and as core counts increase, and like I said, the economic incentive in embedded devices because of the core counts, like it's more economically interesting to have one custom built system on a chip with a ton of cores than to deploy multiple devices. Zen's there to power all that. So it's actually a really exciting time and really interesting to see I like to use mature over legacy, a mature project that's still suited for the future, right? And is actively having active changes today. It's exciting.
Yeah. Sort of on the other extreme of this, I see that there's been some work on running Zen on like the Raspberry Pi. Specifically, I'm seeing the Pi 4 is one of the places where it runs. Is that something that you've got to play around with?
Jeez, I'm working on installing it on my Pi 5 right now, which is in front of me.
Awesome.
Yeah, I went 5 because I'm going to try to build a proof of concept of what we're doing in cars. So another one of our members, EPAM, is there's a GitHub repo. I'll share it again. We can put it in the show notes at the end. They have a repo deploying Zen, ideally thinking of the embedded space on a Raspberry Pi 5. So this is possible. Now, there's some challenges there. Why is there a special repo for that? And the reason is that I'm already seeing some faces sighing over here. The processor in a Pi wasn't built with virtualization in mind, right? So this is work that happened way back in 2009, right, to get the hardware manufacturers to build in the support for virtualization, and we all take that for granted today on our machines. And the Pi doesn't have all the features that I think Zen expects in a processor. So there's some repos that have some workarounds to provide that.
Yeah, I will say on your Pi 5, you're gonna have a much better time if you go get one of the PCI Express hats and run an NVMe on it. It makes it.
I know. I got this. I'm gonna do it, right?
Yeah.
I'm glad we were here because I got this thing, which crashes about once a week, right?
Right.
I know. Yeah. I don't know why, but when I ran this in a server, I had to reboot it about once a week.
Yeah. Well, there you go. This place, it's the place to get you. Yeah, the hat's the way to go. It's a good place to get your hands dirty, though. You could dive into that code and figure out what's going wrong.
So I told myself I need to get something that I'm passionate about, right? So get my hands on some hardware and well, I mean, disappear. People are like, where's Cody? He's hacking on his Raspberry Pi, right?
I mean, it sounds like, given your background and your interest, that's going to be kind of a great place for you to spend some time, because that is sort of the intersection of the embedded world and what Zen is doing right now. It's fun. I have so much ARM development hardware within arm's reach. ARM and RISC-V. I'm a sucker for it. Rob,
I watched your.
Go ahead.
I watched your recent the last few podcasts you're talking about is the Adreno project, and I realized that this is a passion on the show, which is so cool.
Yeah, well, and once we came to Hackaday too, Arduino has just been a huge thing there for years and years. And Rob is terrible. We'll be on this show, or we'll be on the Untitled Linux show, and Rob will be like, "Hey, look at this new board that I found." And my wife will be in the live comments like, "Rob, don't get it, don't stop." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I bought that. I bought one of those. The one of the latest ones is the Clockwork Pi. I saw that, and it's
Tell me about it.
Yeah, it's a.
What does it do?
It's the idea is that it lets you use sort of the old school. Run basic right out of the gate. That's what their firmware is, but the interface is almost like an old calculator, like an old scientific calculator. And so it's got kind of the best of both of those worlds. And I saw that. My wife in the chat room right now says, "He's not kidding. He's got a bunch."
I played around with Esprino, which is running an ECMAScript on an Adreno device. I don't know, this is going back probably 5 or 6 years ago, but this was a fun project, and I actually taught a university course about JavaScript, but this is how I got them interested, right? Let's run on some hardware.
Yeah.
Let's do this, right? You don't want to watch me lecture, run a web server on your hardware, control some IO ports, turn on some lights and read some temperature sensors and show me that in a web server. And people love that. Yeah.
So I mean, that's
a different show.
Just happens to be on my desk. Literally, I did not plan this. I've got the Star 5, which is a RISC-V. I've got the OpenWRT1, which is the official OpenWRT hardware, and then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 Meshtastic nodes. and a Raspberry Pi hat that lets you run Meshtastic on the Raspberry Pi. I mean, yeah, I'm a little addicted. I may have a problem. Don't send help though. I'm very happy.
Leave me here. Yeah.
Leave me be. I'm very happy with my various bits of embedded hardware. It's fun.
Love that.
All right.
Yeah. So let's get Zen running on one of those, right? So I'll tell you how my project works out with my Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get like a display, try to get some gauges up there, and kind of model this because I talked to Rob about that control plane, the DOM0, where you can control. It's really going to allow you to change the resources and create new virtual machines. So what happens though, if you're going to deploy this in an embedded device, a car, for example, a production embedded device, you don't need any of that, right? Like you don't need to dynamically add virtual machines. So you're going to define that at production time. Like you have 5 virtual machines, whatever it is. So it's more config based than dynamic based. So there's a few ways to manage that. One is what we call DOM0 less. So remove DOM0, right? Like use a config file, define your tree of hardware, and define that in a config file. So when it boots, it's fixed. And there's other projects, the repo that I'll share that we can put in the show notes. They use Zephyr, which is a real-time operating system, also part of the Zen project. Sorry, not Zen project, the Linux Foundation. Get that straight. And that's another way, like, because it's kind of a lightweight operating system that you could use to have that control plane. So I'm getting a little bit on a side note here, but what's happening is there's a whole bunch of projects in the Linux Foundation. If you look at Zen, if you look at automotive grade Linux, you look at Zephyr, ELISA, which is their safety certification, Linux safety certification foundation. Like the Linux Foundation is going to come with like a full software defined vehicle stack. Like this is happening today.
Right.
And there's some really exciting things happening. So I'm working hard. Part of my role as a community manager is work with the folks at Zephyr, work with the folks with these other projects to see in automotive grade Linux, like how can we all work together? And it's happening. The automotive grade Linux project, their reference architecture has Zen in it. So it's that layer between the hardware and the OSs that are running is Zen. So it's like I said, it's just such an exciting time, and it's all based on open source, right?
Yeah.
Which is so cool.
Very cool. We are about out of time. I do want to ask real quick before I get down to our standard final questions. What does the funding model look like? How has Zen managed to be around and apparently make money for over 20 years? What does that look like?
I don't know the early history of that, because there was like Zen Source that got acquired by different companies along the way, right? I think when it came to the Linux Foundation, I think it came with some budget, but I don't have the history on that.
Right.
What I can tell you now is that since we are a Linux Foundation project, so it's part of a nonprofit organization, we have an advisory board, and to be a member of the advisory board, there's a few ways to do it, but one of the ways is the industry can have a paid membership to be a part of the advisory board. Got it. And so this is really split between the code side of things. So the maintainers is, you have to build your credibility, and everything happens by democracy to what features happen where. And then you have kind of the administrative side of the project and that budget piece that you talked about, and that's run by the advisory board. So I don't know if donation's the right word, but there's a paid membership to be a part of the advisory board. So that's how the funding works for the project. But we have events and stuff, so we have other ways that we can bring in some revenue and make magic happen, right? And one of the things that I'm experimenting with, which is what I think the Automotive Grade Linux Foundation does, is why not hire contractors, right? And have that happen through the foundation. So we're not doing that today, but I think we're really close to getting there, where if a member says, hey, like I need this feature, they can bring in a sum to the project, and we can find contractors to build that in the open source ecosystem, which is advantage for everybody, right?
Yeah,
we're all building off of that.
It's a great model when you can make it work. Not every project can make it work, but Zen might be able to. You guys might have that sort of magic set of ingredients to be able to make that work. It would be very cool.
Something I love about the project is that we have this really big interest in industry and a really big interest in the open source community. So, like you said, it is kind of hard to strike that balance, but Zen is doing it, and I feel like we're a great example of how that can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I've got to ask you 2 final questions, or else I will get hate mail if I do not. And that is, what is your personal favorite text editor and scripting language?
I saw this in the 2019 episode. But it was different hosts, so I didn't know I was going to get the same question, so I didn't prepare that.
But it is a tradition that we have continued.
Does it have to be today's favorite text editor, or can I give my history? Right, I was originally Emacs person, so Vim has always just frustrated me, like colons and weird key combos. I guess you have weird key combos in Emacs too, but I never liked the colon. Like the colon just drove me crazy. In the insert mode, like I don't want to push I just want to be able to type. So I was never a Vim person. Sorry, I'm gonna get hate mail too. Right?
That's fine. No. So Randall ran the show for years and years. He's an Emacs guy, and so we always get a little cheer.
I saw him get flamed. Yeah, I saw him get flamed for that.
Right? So that too. We always get a little cheer though from Randall when somebody says that Emacs is their preference.
In modern, I actually coded professionally in Emacs. I installed a bunch of plugins to get autocomplete and stuff, and that was fun. And then I was doing Python development at the time, but at some point, like I installed an IDE. I was like, oh yeah, this is why we have IDEs. Like, I was like 3 times more productive.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't want to get hate mail for that either. If I'm going to boot up a Linux machine, I'm just going to use Nano. Like I don't want to think about hotkeys. Like I don't have my head is full of so many things. Like I've lost like the finger memory, right? I've lost it, so I'm just going to use Nano and do it like the lazy way. But today in 2025, like if I'm working on code, I'm gonna use VS Code. So that was a rambling response.
That is an extremely common answer, actually. Is sort of a sheepish. I just use VS Code these days.
I use VS Code. Like, I'm over it. Right?
And I'm there too, right? So like hilariously, and I get annoyed by this because it doesn't work very well, but hilariously, I will have often at least one instance of VS Code open, and in the terminal that you can pop up in the bottom half of VS Code, I will often have a Nano instance open there. And it drives me crazy because VS Code intercepts some of the control keys.
Yep.
So like there's certain things you can't do. Like I think cutting lines and pasting lines the way you use Control K and Control U is one of the ones that VS Code will block, and it's not annoyed me enough yet to figure out how to fix it. But one of these days, I will figure out how to fix that.
Yeah, I know that feeling. And so, what was your second question for the 2-part here?
Scripting language. What's your favorite scripting language?
JavaScript is my passion. I mean, you're talking about writing a script on a Linux machine. Will I use JavaScript? If I have the choice, I will use Node for sure.
Yeah.
If I have the choice, I've done so many years of development with Node. I'm just really comfortable there, and I love that project because it's part of the Linux Foundation, the OpenJS Foundation. So I love it being protected by the LF, and it's just so popular. Like I've been to a lot of conferences in the Node ecosystem or the web development ecosystem, and the APIs are like changing relatively rapidly, right? But new features are dropped like every version, which is just, I don't know. I love that. Like Node's old and ugly, right? You can write horrible code in Node, right? Like or JavaScript. We've all seen it, right? Like the internet's been around for a long time.
That's true of most languages.
But you don't have to.
Right.
You don't have to write bad code, which is probably true in any coding language. But yeah, JavaScript's my passion.
Yep, that's fair. I'll
get some hate mail for that too, right?
Well, yeah, maybe. There are very few legitimately wrong answers to that question. Now, if you had said Java, I would give you a hard time for that. But
I did Java. I did Java in industry for a few years, and that's when I discovered JavaScript and like microservices. I was like, whoa, like doesn't have to be that complicated, right? Like one person can understand the entire code base. Like what?
Yep.
Huh.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we are out of time, and I want to say thank you so much, Cody, for being here. It's been a blast to get to talk to you. We stumped the guest with a few hard questions, but that's all right.
Yeah.
That's all right. Here after a while, maybe we won't wait 6 years, but after a while we'll bring Cody back and bring somebody else back for that particular strain of questions. But it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun to chat with you.
Bring some backup.
Yeah. Thank you both. Yeah, and bring me back. Maybe I'll have the answers, and I'm relatively new on the project, so maybe I'll have the answers. But I'll bring some backup. I like that. Like this 2-on-1 thing is it's a hard dynamic, right?
We're getting up on you.
Thank you both so much. Yeah, thank you both so much.
Yep, appreciate it. Thank you, man. All right, Rob, what do you think?
I mean, I've been curious about the project for years. I've never really dug into it. I'm definitely gonna have to try it one of these days this week when I get some time. This sounds like it's pretty easy to get up and going, and I did poke around on the XCPNG site a little bit during the gaps here, so it's something I'm gonna have to try out soon here.
Yeah, you've got some of this same hardware sitting around that I do because we're bad influences on each other. Maybe you need to get it running on something embedded like RISC-V or one of your Raspberry Pis.
Yeah, I do have that stuff sitting around, and really that's about all it's been doing is sitting.
I understand.
I don't know if that's where I want to start with the hardware that hasn't done anything yet for me.
Yeah, that may be jumping into the deep end of the pool there, but it'd be fun. All right, is there anything that you want to plug for yourself?
Well, for anyone who wants to see more of me, you can catch me Saturdays or on the reruns at the Untitled Linux Show, where I co-host with Jonathan and a couple other guys are usually there. Or you can go to my website, robertpcampbell.com, and you can find information or social media links or anything there about me you want. Connect and say hi.
All right, very cool. I do not have to plug the Untitled Linux Show because I brought Rob along today and he just did it, but I also plug Hackaday. If you want to find more of me, there is the security column that goes live every Friday at Hackaday, and we sure appreciate Hackaday being the home of Floss Weekly these days. We don't yet have a guest for sure for next week, although I've got some leads. But if you run a project or know of a project that really needs to be on the show, drop us an email. It's floss@hackaday.com. That'll come to me and we'll get it scheduled. Appreciate that. We will be back one way or another next week, and we appreciate everybody that watches, that listens, that gets us live or on the download, and we will see you then on Floss Weekly.